So with today's news and the things that are going on in the hockey world, this kind of seems secondary. Big trade, big retirement, forced retirement. But let's get into it. The Montreal Canadiens have a 3-game winning streak. Detroit has a 5-game losing streak. And I'm going to go on the record right now and say I'm not doing predictions today. Yesterday I did predictions just to show how bad I am at it. 0-4, done. I don't do predictions. So the Wings are 10-10-5. Montreal's 11-12-3. Now, interestingly enough, same amount of points. If Montreal wins this tonight, they pass Detroit. They have more wins. Now, I'm honestly kind of surprised to see Niemi's a likely starter last time I looked. And yet, sure. Carey Price needs a night off. Absolutely. He's allowed 2 goals on 3 games. And when Niemi played for Montreal against Nashville, he played well. So, yeah, go ahead. I can't believe I'm saying give Niemi a start. They've won 3 in a row, and they're showing a little bit of faith in Niemi. Good. Jimmy Howard gets the start for Detroit. This should favor Detroit because you have Howard against Niemi. It should favor Detroit, but Detroit's lost 5 in a row. They're finding a way to lose. And Montreal's finding a way to win. So we'll see. Dallas is in Chicago. And in this one, it's an interesting situation when you have Dallas and Chicago because they were both supposed to be better than what they've been. They both have the same record over the last 10 games. They're both 3 games above 500. Dallas has won its last 2. Chicago lost its last game. I personally think Dallas is starting to get momentum, but now they're in Chicago. And Bishop's numbers on the road aren't great. Even though I watched a game he played in Vancouver and he played pretty well. They won that game. But in general, his numbers aren't very good on the road. So to me, this game is going to be a matter of can Chicago stop the bleeding? And can Dallas maintain their ascension, seemingly? Are they finally going to go on that run? Is Bishop finally ready to go on that run? And Crawford against likely Bishop. That's a good matchup. I favor Crawford out of the 2 goalies. But you never know which Ben Bishop's going to show up. The one who gets a shutout or the one who gets pulled in the second period. Guess is as good as mine. LA's in Washington. And that one, Washington has a 6-4-0 record. They've won their last 3 and their last 10 games are 6-4. LA's 3-6-1 in their last 10, but they've won their last 2. So for LA, they want to get back to where they were at the start of the year. For Washington, they're trying to show, hey, we may not be the juggernaut we were last year in the regular season, but we're still in the running. We're still one of the better teams in the East. This is one of those games that'll show something. And Washington's at home. Long road trip for LA. We'll see. I think it's like I don't remember. I know Anaheim's on a long road trip. I'm pretty sure LA's on a similar road trip. Anyways, we'll see. It's Holt being quick. So because it's 2 big-name goalies, it'll probably be a shootout, 5-4. Some crazy number like that. That seems to be the way it goes. But we'll see, won't we? Vancouver. So the Canucks are in Nashville. And the Canucks have lost 3 in a row. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10. Markstrom is the likely starter. Rinne's the likely starter for the 8-1-1 in their last 10 Nashville Predators, who won their last game. And this looks like a mismatch in every way. Defensively, Nashville's better. Goaltending, Nashville's better. Offensively, Nashville's better. And Vancouver's coming off 3 straight losses. This is the end of the road trip for the Canucks. It's been a long 6-game road trip. They won the first 2, lose the next 3, and now tonight's a big game because they did lose one of those 3 games in overtime. So technically, well, it's a shootout. Technically, they're 2-2-1 on this road trip. This is going to decide whether they're above or below 500 on the road trip. I'd be willing to bet on lower than 500, but again, look at my record from yesterday. It wasn't very good. The Coyotes are in Calgary, and the Coyotes, that 3-game winning streak is now a thing of the past. They've lost their last 2. Wedgwood's the likely starter. Ronta is not with the team in Calgary. Calgary's likely starting Smith. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. They lost their last game, of course, against Toronto. Whereas the Coyotes are 4-4-2 in their last 10. There's not much to choose between these two teams in the last 10, but when you look at it, again, the goaltending, you favor Calgary. Defense, you favor Calgary. Offense, Calgary. There really isn't anything that you look at and say, well, Arizona should be better with this part of their game. And I've noticed, too, in Arizona games, I think now 3 times I've seen Hjalmarsson leave the ice hurt. So Hjalmarsson's wearing down, and he was a big part of that blue line rebuild they tried to do in the offseason. They tried to make some revamps to their roster with a couple of big moves, and they really haven't paid off yet. Ronta's been hurt twice now, so that doesn't help. But just in general, it just hasn't worked. I mean, they're on pace for about a 20-win season. So that would be a fail. No matter what way you look at this, that would be a fail if they end up with 20 or around 20 wins. That's just a complete fail for them. Now, it looks better than it did when they looked like they were going to get like 8 wins in the season. But, again, you're splitting hairs. It's between dumpster fire and tire fire. You're really just deciding between which one's worse than the other. And for the Flames, this is exactly what they need to bounce back from that game against Toronto and to start wins going again. So we'll see what happens with the Flames and the Coyotes tonight. That's probably the one I'm going to watch. See, and I don't like to say that either, because when there's this many games on, usually there'll be a game that'll catch my attention, and then I end up watching that anyways. And it's not usually the game that I expect. Like last night, I expected to watch Montreal and Ottawa, and I expected to be enraptured with that game and whatever happens, and yet it was Boston-Tampa that just stunned me, so I had a hard time turning away from that for longer than a few minutes. Vegas. So the Vegas Golden Knights tonight are in Minnesota. They're 15-7-1. They're 6-3-1 in their last 10. They lost their last game, of course, a shutout against Dallas. And LA-WSH is listed as probable. I'd be surprised if it wasn't Subban. I said that the last time I saw LA-WSH listed as probable. I can't see it being anybody but Subban. And it's probably Dubnyk for the Wild, who've lost their last 2. I'll go out on a limb and say it should be Dubnyk, because they can't afford to get on another losing streak. See, they're 6-3-1 in their last 10. And it's because, they went on this nice run, and it looked like they were back in the picture, but now they're back at the bottom of the division, and this can get away from them quickly. And a game at home against Vegas, they need to win this. Don't look at Vegas's record. Just look at the fact that Minnesota should be better than this, and it's Vegas. This shouldn't be a juggernaut team coming in. This is a team that Minnesota defensively should be able to handle. They should be better in net. And their offense hasn't been quite what was expected. And that has to start turning around. If Minnesota's going to have a good December, I think a win tonight goes a long way towards starting that. A loss tonight, I don't know. I mean, either Chicago or Dallas is going to get points tonight, or potentially both if it's a 3-point game. And those are the teams that Minnesota has to catch. Minnesota can't afford to fall further behind these guys, because they're already too far behind Winnipeg, St. Louis, and Nashville. I was going to say Seattle. I don't know why. Nashville, St. Louis, and Winnipeg are beyond their reach. So they can't afford to see Chicago and Dallas get into that position as well, or they're done. And Colorado won last night too. So they can't afford to lose a game like this. They're at home. It's Vegas. Take advantage. Jump on them early. Get some goals. Get some confidence. Or they may be golfing in mid-April, because this division is just killer. If they were in the Pacific, I would say, you know what, they have a good chance. But because they're in the Central, their chances are slim, and they're going to get close to none if they don't turn this around. And finally, last but not least, the Toronto Maple Leafs are in Edmonton. So this is an interesting one, right? Matthews, McDavid, the 16-9-1 Toronto Maple Leafs against the 10-13-2 Edmonton Oilers. Freddie Anderson's highly likely against Laurent 5 days. The earliest they can bring him off the IR is December 5th. So Nick Ellis is the backup. And they mentioned on Hockey Central this morning, I said, well, you know, Vegas has done well with whoever in net. Maybe Edmonton can do it too. Yeah, the thing is, that's the exception rather than the rule. It's like last night, anytime there was a face-off in a game and there was less than 3 seconds left in it, there were 2 games I saw this in where the announcer said, well, there's only a couple seconds left, but remember what the Kings did to Boston. That's an exception rather than the rule. That's a really, really rare exception. And the idea that Brossoit can do what Subban or any of them, even on just a couple of games, it's a stretch. And to compare what the Oilers are going to have to do without Talbot to what Vegas has had to do without three top goalies. Keep in mind, Vegas was winning games and scoring a lot of goals. Edmonton's problem's been scoring goals. McDavid's totals are good considering nobody else on the team, Draisaitl, Nugent-Hopkins aside, McDavid's kind of been carrying things a little more than he had to last year. And Matthews, he didn't have a shot in the last game and you wouldn't know it. Because Toronto won. Toronto doesn't need Matthews to win. Edmonton needs McDavid and they still lose. That's the big difference between these two teams, and now you take out Talbot, who, even though Talbot's numbers haven't been very good, I don't think you'd find very many people that would say Brossoit playing gives him a chance to prove he's better than Talbot. I don't see it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with these two teams tonight. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. A lot of hockey being played, some interesting matchups. We're already to the point in the year where some records are starting to show that certain teams are probably already out, and they're flirting with being out. Montreal, if not for this 3-game winning streak, would have been out. Detroit is flirting with it, but they're in the Atlantic, so it's possible a team with an iffy record can get in. Dallas has started winning and has to because, as I said, that division is really deadly. The Canucks appear to be falling out of playoff contention a lot later than expected, but it is a fall. And losing Dorsett, that's just another... And Dorsett's 7 goals were kind of a mirage. I mean, he's been good, but he's not a goal scorer. You can't rely on him to be a goal scorer for your team, or you're done. So the Canucks are falling out. Right now, the Coyotes are just playing for pride. Minnesota's flirting with falling out, and Edmonton needs another win. They have to win. They have to win a bunch. Realistically, for the Oilers to become relevant in terms of being where they're supposed to be, they'd have to go on a winning streak of about 7 or 8 games, and then play really well from there. They can't afford another bad patch of games, or they will find themselves definitely on the outside looking in come April. But let me know what you guys think. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, and thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.